I'm Edie Lush, Executive Editor of Hub Culture. Really pleased to be here with Anders Rodenberg, CEO of Denominator. Now, you had a pretty comfortable life, head of data for North and South America for Moody's. What happened? Why'd you leave?
Yeah, first and foremost, it is an amazing company, and I often miss it a lot. But in some ways, you know, life is also so precious, and we need to sort of always explore and see what we can do. But yeah. In many ways, I think it is really around creating some impact. And at Moody's, I was at a very comfortable level. It was fun, great colleagues, great company. But I didn't feel like I was creating the type of impact that I could have. And that was why I chose to leave.
So you're sharing some pretty incredible data, some pretty shocking data, in fact, about where the world is now in terms of where women are in companies, in positions of power, all the way from the top all the way through the company. What have you discovered? What's shocking?
Yeah, and I would say it's not only women, it's also race, ethnicity, it's disability, socioeconomic background, it's age. There are so many factors that makes us all think and act unique. And this is really the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion that we are applying to investments and to supply chains. And I think some of the more crazy discoveries, I would say, is how some of the money currently is being deployed in ESG and sustainability. We're now here at COP in Dubai. We recently did an analysis of 300 of the largest ESG and sustainability funds in the US. And some of the striking findings, I would say, is that there was less capital in the sustainability funds directed towards companies that was led by women than if you had just invested in something like MSCI World or Acquia or more regular indexes. Another one is that there was actually 28% of the funds were directed towards companies that is in the bottom quartile on gender performance. So again, what
does that mean, bottom quartile in terms of
this essentially means the companies that are performing the worst on gender. So again, if we took the analogy from maybe the E in ESG that is more well understood and well used, like would we really accept that you have an ESG fund where 28% of the money is allocated to the worst or the biggest emitters on carbon? And this is really where, again, the E, S, and G are three separate areas, but we often tend to forget the S especially. And that's really what we're trying to do with the data, is to bring the transparency to the S, and especially around the people side of that.
So what do you want to happen as a result of bringing all of this information to light?
I would like the investors to have a lot more options. So basically, in some ways, democratizing the capital flows. I do find it a bit of a paradox that if you sign up for a pension plan in the US right now, you have the options of your sort of financial institution will ask you, how do you want your money invested? And you have the option around no weapon, no tobacco, no deforestation. But if you're a woman or if you're a racial minority, you can't say, here, take my money, invest it, give me a good return, but also make sure that you don't give these money to companies that are underperforming on gender or on race, ethnicity. Or you have the option to say, I want to give this money to you so that you could give it to companies that are doing really well on disability, or what your cause is. So I find that a bit of a paradox that we started with things like weapon and tobacco, also super important, but we didn't start where it's closest to home because we're all people and we all have things we care about.
Do you think that the label of ESG is going to stay as it is? My question is around, we've seen a lot of ESG bashing in the media. Is it going to stay as it is?
I think in some degree, some of the ESG bashing and the backlash needed to happen because, again, the E, S, and G are three separate areas. We put it into one acronym and didn't provide any transparency. So, of course, everyone's going to get confused when one company is at the top of one rating agency, it's at the bottom of another. There's no correlation. That confuses the market big time. And this is why then people are asking, what is happening? And to some degrees, it was a little bit the Wild West, and no one knew what was happening. So this is why we need to understand what is the E. The E is carbon, it's water, it's biodiversity. The S the majority of the S is people and diversity, equity, and inclusion, but it's also human rights, it's health and safety. We need to understand each of those, and then we can decide, either as investors or as companies in our supply chain, what do we care about? Is it the emissions? Is it water? Is it biodiversity? Is it people? And in people, which dimension is it? And then we set it up, or is it all of it? But at least we know what we're measuring and what we're trying to achieve, instead of putting some label on it, and we don't really know what goes into the label.
Anders, thanks so much for being a partner here, being part of Hub Culture here at COP28, and I'm Edie Lush.